Grace always stood out, not only for her captivating beauty but also for her striking presence that seemed to light up any environment. Since her teenage years, she attracted attention for her natural elegance and charisma, qualities that led her to be crowned Miss of her hometown at the age of 18. However, contrary to what many might imagine, she never settled merely for the admiration her appearance afforded her. Raised in a family of legal professionals, she grew up listening to long conversations about ethics, justice, and the challenges of the profession. Her father, a respected lawyer, always taught her that knowledge and character were the greatest assets one could possess. Inspired by him, she dedicated herself intensely to her studies, spending hours engrossed in books, honing her argumentation skills, and sharpening her intelligence. Determined to build a solid career on her own merits, Grace enrolled in law school, where she stood out both for her dedication and her ability to express her ideas with clarity and firmness. After years of effort, she graduated with excellence and, as expected, received an invitation to join the family's renowned law firm. But Grace knew she would need to prove her worth and carve out her space not as the owner's daughter, but as a competent and prepared lawyer. It was in a particularly challenging divorce case that Grace met Joseph. They represented opposing sides in an intense dispute over assets. The hearings were tense, with sharp arguments from both sides. Grace impressed with her eloquence and quick thinking, while Joseph stood out for his well-crafted strategy. After weeks of heated battles in court, they finally reached a satisfactory agreement for both parties. In the courthouse hallway, Joseph approached Grace with a smile. "Congratulations, Miss Grace. You are truly skilled with words," he said, extending his hand. Grace smiled back, shaking his hand firmly. "You are not far behind either, Mr. Joseph. It was a difficult case, but we achieved a good result for our clients." "I completely agree. And since we will no longer be adversaries in this case, how about we meet for dinner?" Joseph asked, catching Grace by surprise. She hesitated for a moment, but something in his warm gaze made her accept. And so began the romance between Grace and Joseph, which rapidly transformed from professional rivals to a passionate couple. The wedding took place a few years later, to the joy of family and friends. Grace and Joseph made quite the pair, both in personal life and professionally. They began working together in the same office, earning respect and admiration in the legal field. In legal and social circles, Grace and Joseph quickly gained the reputation of being the dream couple. Young, successful, and incredibly in love, they formed a duo that inspired admiration wherever they went. In the courthouse hallways, Grace stood out with her impeccable posture and natural elegance. Her sophisticated dresses highlighted her striking presence, while her high heels echoed on the polished marble, keeping pace with the firm rhythm of her decisive steps. Her confidence was almost palpable, and her sharp intelligence made her a respected and feared lawyer at the same time. Joseph, in turn, was not left behind. Always impeccably dressed, his tailored suits accentuated his imposing figure and conveyed the same sophistication and competence he demonstrated in his courtroom arguments. There was something magnetic about the way he carried himself, a blend of charm and strategic precision that captivated colleagues and clients. When Grace discovered she was pregnant with their first child, she had no doubt that she would continue with her intense work routine. For her, pregnancy was just another phase of life, not a reason to slow down. "Pregnancy is not a disease," she would say firmly whenever Joseph, worried, suggested that she ease her pace. She continued going to the office every day, attending important meetings, and representing clients with the same energy and determination as always. However, in the last months of pregnancy, an unexpected scare made her rethink her priorities. During a hearing, she felt a sudden dizziness followed by an uncomfortable tightness in her chest. Joseph insisted that she see a doctor, and after some tests, the recommendation came: rest. The baby was fine, but her body was showing signs that it needed some time. Reluctantly, Grace found herself forced to make concessions. She put the high heels away in the closet and began wearing more comfortable shoes. She delegated part of her work to trusted colleagues and started working from home whenever possible. For a woman used to being in control, yielding to her own body was a challenge, but little by little, she learned to accept that forced pause. Then, the big day arrived. When she held her son in her arms for the first time, something inside her changed. The woman who had lived for the courts until then discovered a new and overwhelming passion: motherhood. The concerns about deadlines and hearings were replaced by the soft scent of the baby, the warmth of his little body nestled against hers. The world that once revolved around work suddenly found a new center. The sleepless nights were exhausting, but Grace relished every moment with her son. Without hesitation, she decided to temporarily step away from the office to fully dedicate herself to motherhood. Joseph supported her unconditionally. "My love, do whatever you think is best. Your place at the office will be waiting if and when you want to return," he said kindly. Time passed and Grace became pregnant 2 more times. Within a few years, the couple found themselves with 3 small children. The bustling routine of courtrooms was replaced by a more practical, family-oriented life. High heels were stored in the closet, replaced by comfortable sneakers. Elegant dresses gave way to looser, easier-to-wash clothes. The hours Grace used to spend at the gym were now dedicated to taking the children to the park or playing with them at home. She embraced motherhood with all her heart and with undeniable dedication. With the family growing, Grace and Joseph decided to move to a larger house in a quiet residential neighborhood. The first days were chaotic, between unpacking boxes and adapting the children to the new environment. Joseph offered to hire help, but Grace preferred to do everything at her own pace. One day, noticing that the diapers were running out, Grace took advantage of her mother's visit to quickly go to the neighborhood market. While choosing the products, she overheard 2 women talking. "Did you see the handsome and elegant man who moved into the house on the corner? What a beautiful man! Yesterday I saw some children playing in the backyard, but I only saw the nanny there. The wife must be as elegant as he is," commented one of them. Grace was surprised to realize that they were talking about her family. The nanny the women mentioned could only be herself. After all, she was the only one taking care of the children. At first, she didn't mind the confusion, but the comment kept echoing in her mind. The next morning, Grace decided to take the children to the neighborhood park. The day was pleasant, with a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees and children's laughter filling the air. While watching the little ones playing on the slide, some mothers who were chatting nearby approached her with cordial smiles. "Have you been taking care of these children for a long time?" one of them asked, tilting her head with curiosity. Grace frowned slightly, surprised by the question. "Well, yes, since they were born," she replied with a hesitant smile. "That's amazing. The employers must trust you a lot," commented another woman, sincerely, but without realizing the confusion she was causing. Grace blinked, absorbing those words. Only then did she realize that they didn't see her as the mother, but rather as the nanny. She laughed awkwardly but quickly proceeded to clarify, "Actually, I am their mother." The expressions around changed, some accompanied by a brief, uncomfortable silence. "Oh, sorry, I thought that—" The woman didn't finish the sentence, seeming awkward. Grace just smiled, trying not to be affected, but that brief interaction kept echoing in her mind. Throughout the morning, a few more mothers approached her, asking similar questions, and she found herself repeatedly explaining that she wasn't anyone's nanny. She was a mother, wife, and homemaker, even if her appearance apparently didn't match the idea they had of her. When she got home, she looked at herself in the mirror more closely. The years dedicated exclusively to motherhood had left their marks. Post-pregnancy weight gain, the dark circles from sleepless nights, the practical and plain clothes, all contributed to an appearance very different from the elegant lawyer she used to be. Sitting on the bed, Grace sifted through old photos on her phone. Images of sophisticated dinners, elegant parties, and special moments with Joseph filled the screen. For a moment, she felt a pang of nostalgia for that life, a longing for the old Grace. But soon newer photos appeared. The smiling faces of her children, family moments, the small joys of daily life. An involuntary smile appeared on her lips. Grace knew she had lost herself a little in the path of motherhood. She had dedicated so much to her children that she had ended up neglecting certain aspects of herself. However, the love and fulfillment she felt as a mother were undeniable. As the family was having dinner that evening, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the house. Grace got up, wiping her hands on the dish towel before heading to the door. When she opened it, she found a well-dressed neighbor, a middle-aged woman with a polite smile and an impeccably pressed dress. "Good evening," said the neighbor, casting a quick glance inside the house. "I would like to speak with the lady of the house." Grace blinked, surprised. For a brief moment she considered the question. Before she could respond, Joseph appeared by her side, still holding the napkin from the table. "Oh, my wife," he said, gently placing his hand on Grace's back. "Grace is the lady of the house." The neighbor froze, her eyes widening slightly before a subtle blush took over her face. The discomfort was palpable. "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought—" She laughed awkwardly, looking away. Grace maintained a serene expression, although inside she felt a mix of emotions. It wasn't the first time someone had made that kind of assumption, but still, it affected her in a way that was hard to ignore. The neighbor was there to invite the family to the traditional annual neighborhood barbecue. Grace thanked her for the invitation, feeling a mix of emotions, embarrassment for the mess, but also a pang of sadness for having strayed so far from who she used to be. Later, already in bed, Grace confided in Joseph about her conflicting feelings. She missed the old Grace, but at the same time felt guilty about these thoughts, since she deeply loved her children and the life they had built. Joseph embraced her warmly, listening attentively. "Darling, you are an amazing mother and a wonderful wife, just as you were a brilliant lawyer. It's normal to feel lost at this stage of life, to miss who you once were. How about we start slowly? We can hire someone trustworthy to look after the kids once a week, so you have some time just for yourself. If you want, you can even gradually return to the office. Your room is still there, waiting for you." Joseph's words were a balm for Grace. She realized she didn't have to choose between being a mother and being a woman. She could find a balance between the two roles. In the following days, Grace put the plan into action. She hired a trusted nanny to stay with the children once a week. On that day, she allowed herself to take care of herself, going to the salon, getting her nails done, choosing clothes that made her feel beautiful again. Gradually, she resumed some old habits that brought her pleasure. She started reading legal journals again, keeping herself updated on her profession. On some afternoons, she would stop by the office to help with simpler cases. The familiar aroma of law books and the buzz of legal discussions made her feel alive in a different way. The gradual return to law practice did not diminish her love for her family in any way. In fact, Grace realized that having time for herself made her a more patient and present mother. The children loved seeing their mother dressed up and smiling when she returned from her Grace days, as Joseph affectionately called them. On the day of the neighborhood barbecue, Grace looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. She was wearing a simple yet elegant dress, a pretty pair of shoes, not with heels, but equally elegant. She felt beautiful and confident, but most importantly, she felt like herself. Upon arriving at the party, Joseph proudly introduced her as his wife. The neighbors were surprised to discover that the elegant woman beside Joseph was the same one they used to see in the park with the children. Grace took the opportunity to chat, make new friends, and even discuss some legal topics with a retired lawyer who lived on the street. Returning home that night, hand in hand with Joseph, and with the children asleep in the stroller, Grace felt complete. She realized she didn't have to choose between being a mother, wife, or professional. She could be all those women at once. Grace's journey taught a valuable lesson. In life, everything is a matter of balance. She had embraced the role of a mother with such intensity that she almost forgot the woman she was before. Now, she found joy in balancing all aspects of her personality. Grace discovered that being a mother didn't mean giving up her dreams and passions. On the contrary, maintaining her identity made her an even better example for her children. She showed them that it is possible to be dedicated to family without losing one's essence. With Joseph's support and her unconditional love for her children, Grace found her way. She was no longer just the elegant lawyer, nor only the devoted mother in comfortable clothes. She was a complete, complex and happy woman, embracing all facets of her personality. And so Grace moved forward, masterfully balancing the roles of mother, wife and professional. Her days were filled with children's laughter, stimulating legal discussions and moments of companionship with Joseph. She was proud of the woman she had become, a richer and more complete version of herself, capable of thriving in every aspect of her life. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.